From the Stand Comedy Club in New York City, this is SiriusXM's Unmasked with special guest, Big Jay Oakerson. Jay is the co-host of the podcast Legion of Skanks. He's one half of the Bonfire radio show on SiriusXM. And his first special, Big Jay Oakerson, live at Webster Hall, is coming to Comedy Central. SiriusXM and The Stand are proud to introduce Big Jay Oakerson. And now, here's the host of Unmasked, Ron Bennington.
Seems like a lot.
Yeah. Let me tell you, I've done a lot of these Unmasked. I don't ever remember anything like that.
Nobody. Not even Rich Voss? Rich Voss told me it was like that.
Well, Rich was clapping that loud.
Standing in his own chair.
And then announcing dates as it was going on. This is your time, buddy. This is it. The special.
Yeah, I hope so. I think so.
You know what I think they were cheering too? A guy with a boat drink coming out to do this. Just put up the drink. There it is. Yeah. They call him the Jimmy Buffett of comedy, ladies and gentlemen. Seriously, if you're not in a beach bar, that's ridiculous.
A vodka soda lime?
No, you look great.
Thank you.
You know, you got the special coming out, and how long from the time you decide I'm stepping on stage did you get to the special?
Almost 17 years.
17 years,
yeah.
Man.
Long time.
Yeah. How long ago should you have quit? If you were a normal person. Right?
I almost quit 2 years in.
Yeah.
Because I did that black comedy circuit so much in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I just saw the ceiling on it. I didn't know how to kind of cross over it all. And the few like mainstream rooms that had some white people in it, the way they stared at me when I would hump stools. Or
Yeah. It's really strange. White people don't normally have a problem crossing over. You were the first who were like, how do I work to a white audience?
I had to learn how to work. I'd go, these people aren't gonna get my P. Diddy reference.
Right.
Or my,
The only other person I know that struggled with that, and they made a movie about it, was Tarzan. And he could not feel good with his own people.
I don't understand your society.
Yeah.
Pleasantly sitting there and listening to jokes.
Now, you know that there are...
You're not yelling at me, calling me corny.
You had to know when you were younger, when you're starting, that there are white comedy clubs are out there. We call them comedy clubs. I mean, you have to go out of your way to find a black club.
No, you could find them. They're they're in the boroughs.
Right.
Nice performance. Yeah, they were all like, and they always had great names. It was like, after work, booty jam with comedy. And it'd be these like mix and mingles. So it was a bunch of black people dressed like amazingly well, just trying to pick up other black people dressed amazing. It was like a Tyrese movie or something. And then somehow that they'd go, oh, we're gonna do some comedy now, and there'd always be a guy who hosted who they always love because they know him, and then it just throw a bunch of people to the wolves.
And so you're doing those sets. How long before you started to get any kind of feedback that was positive?
Pretty quick. I came out of the gates and just did a bunch of fat jokes, so that's always easy. Like, just self-deprecation, have them come at you. And then I just learned how to pander in those rooms. can pander pretty good. I was just
Yeah.
doing what everyone else was doing. I'm like, oh, DJ, put that shit on one more again. And I'm like, you know.
They thought it was great that the white boy knew.
Oh, that I knew the stuff. Yeah, the words and stuff. And then I never talked the talk very much, but I definitely, like, you know, I think my first BET's Comic View TV appearance, 6 months in the comedy, which shouldn't happen.
Right.
It was because there was a writer's strike on, or no, not a writer's strike. It was AFTRA. The union was they were striking or banning BET's Comic View because their payment was so bad. It was they didn't fly you out. They got you a deal on a plane ticket. They got you a deal on a hotel room, but you had to stay in this hotel, so they would pick you up, and a $150 check to be on TV.
Yeah.
And I went to Atlanta to do that, and like, which I thought I was fucking fantastic. But my first appearance, my pant leg is rolled up like LL Cool J. I'm wearing a FUBU, which I don't even fit what that shirt says. Unless it meant like fat people. It wasn't fat though. It was for us, by us.
Well, the great thing is, like, when you do stuff like that, it doesn't stay on the internet for the rest of your life.
You know what's funny? That is gone forever, which I'm bummed about because I always tell the story about how I used to get down to underwear on stage, and that would be the only surviving like piece of that footage because it always killed so hard. And then it said like one time I got in front of a crowd that wasn't like, you know, that open mic or the black circuit crowd,
Right.
just people who were like, you know, we're here to just be rowdy and have fun. People who paid like, I opened for somebody and did that joke and it went so bad. Like peeling off your clothes goes so fast and fun. You can't wait to get to the most intimate parts because you're like, that's where they're really going to blow the roof off this place. And then instead, when the first thing gets nothing and you're moving on, every time I took something off, I remember hearing somebody in the back just go, I take my shirt off, and someone just goes, oh, God. And then I'm turning around, and I'm doing this all to the 2001 theme, by the way. And I'm turning around, undoing my pants, like, why am I doing this to myself? There's no reason to do this to myself. And I drop pants anyway. I'm in like leopard print underwear. And you hear someone go, Jesus Christ. And when that music would stop, normally I would just kind of hike my pants up and, you know, to cheers and people falling out of their chairs. You're like, time to go collect my pussy backstage, I guess. And, you know, you pull your pants up quick and just kind of hold them up and walk off, the hands up in the air, so, you know. And I'm standing there in a bodybuilding pose to no laughter, and that 2001 theme stops, and someone just goes, what the fuck? And I felt like it took me an hour to pull my pants. I just kept missing them. I'm like, I'm sorry. I have to get out of here. Kurt Metzger always said I should have just walked off with my pants around my ankles, like just duck walk like a sad kid who's being punished.
Well, he was always a great writer. You know, but seriously, why did you stop doing that bit?
Well, it's funny because anything you take that much of a risk.
Yeah.
When you take a big risk with those kind of acting out things, I learned early, like if it goes bad, you're probably not going to get them back at all.
Oh, you had material to follow that?
No. I don't. I mean, not that joke. No, that was my big closer.
Right.
But I've just seen things. A lot of guys, you know, on the ground, like, you know, humping the ground, doing some fuck scene that they're acting out.
Right.
And then no one's laughing. You have to get up and like dust off your dress pants and be like, so that's my thing with fucking, y'all. Like, wow. Having to sit there awkward and clean your dust off your pants.
I think it's just amazing. First of all, that you didn't tag it with pooping, but also that's that weird thing that young people have in the beginning. You know what I mean? That thing that, like, I will do whatever I can possibly fucking do, you know, to
absolutely.
make this thing work.
Well, do you want to get a reaction too? That's the biggest, I think, most interesting thing for me. I've always been a dirty comic, and in the beginning, that was so rooted in. I didn't care if they oohed and awed, or, you know, you got to, you say something so over the top gross, or so like overtly sexual, and you get the alls. At least they're making noise. Mm-hmm. The worst thing was just trying something that was like kind of benign and funny, and no one laughs, and you're like, okay. All right. You guys didn't like that one. Anybody here ever go camping? But at least if you're like, so just that kind of that dice thing was so much what I was liked. I thought made it look cool to do comedy.
Right.
I was a fan of all comedy across the board, and definitely a student. I didn't realize I was, but I just watched it all. But when I saw Dice, I was like, oh, I'd like to do what he's doing. I didn't set a course in motion to do that. Later in life, when I was like 19 years old, someone suggested I try it, and I tried it. But that kind of like in the beginning, being like that kind of Dice Clay, like offensive almost, mixed in with like the self-deprecation, you'd get the oohs and ahs or the laughs at yourself. It's just making noise from the crowd. And it's funny, I stayed so true to myself and filthy, but that now I'm trying to almost desensitize them to. I don't want the oohs and the ahs. I'm not trying to shock you.
Right.
I think that if I'm saying it now that it's funny, so I hope you laugh at it. You know what I mean?
Well,
but
yeah.
But in the beginning, it's such a crutch.
Well, for where you're at now, it always amazes me that you come out dressed the way you do. And then even in this special, I mean, there's just a ton of people there. And then you just sit on a chair and start to talk pretty quietly to the crowd.
Yeah.
And you're like, but your material, as you said, is not stuff that is, spoken in public by civilized human beings.
And yet I try to make it palatable for even like a grandmother or something, if possible. I'm always shocked sometimes at people who do love it. If I see a lot of gray hair in an audience when I'm behind them before I go on stage, I'm like, oh, they're going to hate it. And I'm surprised those people walk out a lot. And it's like, I do try to send it out definitely with, I'm definitely not trying to have anybody leave like, how dare you say those things? I'm being like, wow, are you that mad about what I'm not like trying to get like to the bottom of issues or anything on stage.
Sure.
I just want to get like people laughing at dick humor.
Well, it is a calling, I guess. But I was thinking when you were talking about Dice, because that was kind of a starting point for you. Dice's starting point was Jerry Lewis, right? So. Yeah. But when you start at Dice, when you're like, okay, this is the jump off point.
Yeah.
That's a strange place. Where do you take that?
No, exactly. Yeah, there was no. I mean, I definitely had much less harsh, less dirty jokes through time because as I would organically kind of write stuff that was dirtier or kind of like, even if it was like honest, real stories that were like filthy. The comedy community doesn't really jump on that so much, and not even some people actually just hate it or they think it's an easy thing to do, which arguably I guess is, or some people just are like this is young comic shit, you know what I mean? It's very people dismiss it very much and they're kind of shitty about it, and so or comics that care about you would go, some of the worst advice I ever got from some of the best people were like, you should probably, and I say it's worse advice for me. Because I don't know if the time and the way things happen is how it's supposed to be or not, but I'm okay with.
I would hope not. By the way.
Well, I know, but the thing is, maybe if I wrote super clean stuff that was like funny, and I was able to get on Tonight Show or things like that years ago, maybe my track would have been different. But the beauty is, I did never have to change anything, and it did finally come around, which was nice because that took fucking forever.
Yeah,
that's what it was. Because I'd be doing what I do, and like. Same people now who will like work with me and are looking to even do things with me years ago were like, we don't have any idea what to do with you.
Right.
They have no idea. It's like, you can't, what am I going to do? Put you on like NBC with a butt fuck joke? It's not going to work.
Well, I mean, butt fucks at 10 I think would work in some places. The other thing is there's an odd disrespect for crowd work. And, to do it to me is like to work without a net, just go out there and start talking. And kind of know you're going to find those jokes, but networks or even comedy clubs, they'll watch the tape and they'll go, okay, it worked with that crowd, but we're not going to get that show. And then you have to convince them that you do this shit every night.
Yeah, it's definitely a gamble for them to take the first time if you bring me in. But I mean, the thing is also at this point now, I have like an arsenal of jokes. Like if the crowd's not giving anything, I can't just pound them jokes into them for a while. That's not a problem. But I mean, like. I like to engage as much as possible, and I give a speech before we do the crowd work show, and I bring other comics on to do it, and some of them are nervous, and some of them don't want to go at certain times because everything's going to be used up, and just
everybody wants to be first.
But it's the tapping in, man. Yeah, everybody wants to be first. Patrice gave me just like not even advice, but like a speech before, but it was. I remember sitting at a table with him, and it was one was something regurged that Tracy Morgan said to him. He told him, and Tracy probably won't remember this.
Sure.
It wasn't an accident joke. I'm saying he's a fucking lunatic before that. Does everybody remember Tracy's a little different?
Right.
Pre-accident?
Yeah. Isn't that funny though? Like 2 weeks before, everybody would went, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Now they're like, hey, you mean the other thing? Or
Right.
Tracy Morgan just said, go on stage and don't be afraid to say the thing that you, like, you know it might not be funny. When you say it out loud, like, people might go, no. He goes, but just try it anyway. Like, almost like have the ball sack to do that. And Patrice's advice was more like, we all start doing comedy because, you know, someone told you were funny, or you were the funny person in your group of friends, generally speaking.
Right.
And when you were funny around your group of friends, or funny at work, or whatever it was, you didn't prepare for that. You weren't like over rehearsing what to do. It was like you just knew you were. You knew your place in the group. You know what I mean? You weren't the guy who can. I wasn't the guy who can dunk. I wasn't the fastest. You know.
No, you weren't.
Believe it or not. Believe it or not. With these calves. With these calves. But so my thing was always kind of being funny, but it really is like how long you have to do comedy to get to the point where you are the same confident and you're funny as you were with your buddies.
Right.
And that really is the thing. And that kind of is in me in working with the crowd and trying to make it as like
it's a street
integrated
corner.
as possible.
Right.
Because you're just trying to have like a hang with them.
Yeah.
More than like the worst tech, you know, is do your jokes or do some jokes. And I'm like, buy my album, fuckface. Like, who cares about it? It's like my jokes. Like I'm giving you a real moment here where something weird might happen.
By the way, for any young comics at home, it's fuckface that made that work. But
two hard F's and a hard C in there.
But yeah, that was the traditional way of being funny, where you're standing out with your buddies, you're busting the balls of somebody that could whip your ass, but you're doing it at the right level that they're going to laugh along and have a good time. But now there's like a generation of kids, like alt comedy people, who they got it from either watching videos and stuff, and then they start to write, and they weren't that guy. You know, they weren't the funny guy.
No. There's you look at something you can learn how to make people laugh for sure. There's definitely several comics who are even good comics,
right?
Who like off stage, you're like, all right, this guy's got the personality of corkboard.
Yeah,
but
it's always shocking, right? When
it is, and it happens. But I tend to see those aren't. I tend to flock to people who are funnier, like off stage, than I even care about how they are on stage. My friends are very indicative of that. I mean, they run everything from like guys who do open mics still. You know, I mean, doing produced shows. I mean, these are people who come to my house for like UFC events or something. You know, it's all over the place. Everything from my last UFC event was a rainbow of, you know, a few years in, open mic guy, and Bill Burr came by for a while, and like, they're all people I know and hang out with, and that's because all those people make me laugh.
How quick before Bill said, "I got to get the fuck out of here"?
You know what? He hung in there.
Yeah, just he's trying to watch the fight. Some kid. So is it timing, Bill? Is that it? It's about timing. Is that what you're looking for?
Actually, ironically, what Bill was doing was regaling everyone with the tales of what his new rich adventures are. He's like, so I got my helicopter license. Here's me flying over the Rose Bowl. I mean, with that exaggeration. But yeah, where I'm going, like, all right, Bill, you jack off. The open micers are like, wow. Did you get your pilot license from the Comedy Store? I got to go to L.A.
I think Bill is proving that you can lose all your money without a coke problem. It's a whole new thing.
It's like I bought my house a house.
Yeah. Oh shit! I forgot to feed my white lions. I'll be right back, everybody.
He's got Mike Tyson taste. Just Bill Burr wearing a Sox jersey and a fucking Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
I hope he lives like Boss Hogg wherever he lives. Just wears like bolo ties. Always fresh iced tea.
Yeah. But you can see where Jay came from. That always fresh iced tea is something you think rich people have.
A nice afternoon. An afternoon Snapple Peach iced tea. Not talking nighttime party time.
Yeah.
Talking a little daytime iced tea.
Well, you were talking about you and, inviting these young guys to be part of your tribe. But when you were young, you kind of were mentored or became friends with a lot of people who were just amazing. And Patrice is obviously one of them. But who are some of the other names?
Pure luck on all of them. When I say that I was going to quit after like 2 years, I planned on going just back to college. I was like, I don't know. Maybe I'll still do it as a hobby, but like I just don't know where to go with it. Mm-hmm. And, I'm looking at myself, and I got my pant leg up, and I'm fucking, I'm not me. I'm not being...
Right.
So I was like, I'm just going to go back to college, I guess. And I was going to take a job. I had to train for 3 days doing the Cutco, the knives.
Right.
For the summertime. 3 days of training you have to go to. On the third day of training, Michael Blackson called me out of nowhere. You know who Michael Blackson is? He's the African king of comedy. He's on TV right now. He came out of Philadelphia. He called me up and he goes, you want to do a gig tonight? And I said, yes, just blindly. I was like, I don't care. I got excited.
Right.
Did someone offer me a gig at all?
Yeah, and you might be able to sell some knives.
Yeah. I could move knives, tell some dick jokes, hump a stool. He goes, you want to do this gig? I said, yeah, I do. And I was like, I'll just not go to the train, see if I can go another day or something. He goes, go to the airport, there's a ticket waiting for you. And I flew myself, obviously, to Comic View, but besides that, I'd never been flown anywhere to do comedy. I thought that was really neat. It was like some gig in Minneapolis. It was a one-nighter. And I got to the airport, and I was opening for someone. I didn't know who, and then a guy approached me at the airport, and he goes, hey, young fella, I'm Keith. It was Keith Robinson.
Right.
And he goes, I'm seeing you around the Laugh House and stuff. I never introduced myself, and I didn't know who he was. I'm like, okay, another comic, I'm opening for him, great. And on the plane, we were sitting in different spots, but his seat was open next to him, so he calls me, come back with him, which I thought was nice. Mm-hmm. And then he starts telling me tales. It looks like he's trying to let me know he knows everybody in comedy. But in my years in the black comedy circuit, these names aren't even like, I know who they are, but they're not blowing my mind. But I don't believe he knows them either. Does that make sense? And by the way, this guy, this is no disrespect to any people he named. It's just that I'm like, he doesn't really know these guys. And I'm like, maybe he does. It's a weird one to name. He's like, so if you're doing all black comedy circuit only, the name Colin Quinn doesn't mean much to you. The guy's a legend. The guy's fantastic. He's been an amazing person to me in my career.
But yet you still don't know how to pronounce his name. It's not Cullen.
Colin Quinn. Colin Quinn. He goes, he said something about Colin Quinn, and I was like, Colin Quinn? He goes, yeah, he stinks. He's doing like his Keith thing. I said something about watching some show that Jim Brewer was on recently, and he goes, Jimmy, I'm going to tell Jimmy next time I see him, I'll crack his head open. But, just doing his Keith thing. And I'm almost doing like the eye roll, like, all right, dude, I get it, It's like you tell me the one time you shook hands with these guys or whatever. And then also, because I'm like, we're going to do this same shitty black show in fucking Minneapolis. So how does he know all these people? And we do the show, and I open for Keith, and I'm taking my clothes off still.
Smart.
You could do anything with this song. DJ, hit that one more time. And Keith watches me, and he does his set, and he does great. So funny. But I have much more of an explosive reaction because I'm doing all the hackneyed shit you do in those scenarios. So when the thing's over, Keith's giving me a talk. He's like, you're a funny kid, just got to we got to get you out to New York, get you around the scene a little bit. You're a little kind of one-dimensional in this. He's like, but you're really funny. You got a good base, for what you're doing. But let me help you out a little bit. And in interrupting his conversations, no one's talking to Keith really, but I'm taking so many pictures with like heavy-set black women in front of an airbrush picture of Tupac and Ferraris. So I'm like, I don't know what this guy's giving me advice about. He's over sitting there all lonesome, and I'm fucking here with these two girls. Yeah. And because Keith had a set that wasn't necessarily made for like that scenario. I was catering it completely to that scenario. Sure. And I went outside and I called Kevin Hart. And I go, Kev, I'm doing a show with this guy Keith, who's sitting there all lonely now. I'm in there fucking elbow deep in black ass. So fucking, they love me so much. And he goes, and Kev goes, yeah, Keith Robinson. He goes, I talked to that guy. He said he was going to try to take me and you up to New York. And something I was like, really? He goes, and Kev goes, yeah, I think he's like the real deal thing. And so we went up with Keith in New York one time. The first night we went up there, he got, I think he got Kev up on stage at Gotham. He got me up on stage at New York Comedy Club, and he got us dates for auditions at the comic strip. And Keith always says that one of the coolest moments in his memory is because, you know, especially where we were to where we are, especially where Kev is. You know, we got those auditions at the comic strip dates, and we came outside. He's like, Kev jumped up in my arms like a Super Bowl hug. Keith always goes, every once in a while, Keith gets in and just calls me. He goes, I remember that day Kev jumped in your big dumb arms. But
I'm not familiar with Kevin Hart. What's he? He's
got some films.
Yeah,
he's got some films.
Yeah. So that was you three guys at that time.
And then I kind of brought, I was so intrigued by Kurt Metzger when he came to the Laugh House because he's in the same circuit I am, grinding it out with these great jokes, and he's just he's dealing with the, shut up, you corny. And we didn't know how to really do anything about that, so he just go up there.
So he wasn't pandering?
No. You know what's funny? Right at the end, right before we came to New York, started coming up to New York, I should say, to try to get into the mainstream open mics and all that stuff. Right before we got there, Kurt had one joke, and it was about, he goes, you know, and he used the words, you know when you're taking a doo-doo and you worry people be looking at your shoes? And I was like, oh no. Kurt's about to turn, we got to get him out of here. They used to call Kurt, bring him back Kurt, because he'd go on stage and the comics all knew how good he was. Right. The comics all respected it. But, you know, the crowd sometimes just turn on him, so they call him bring him back Kurt, because Kurt would go up. They shit on him until he got off stage. And then the host would go up there and goes, come on, man, you guys can't just be booing him because he's a goofy white dude. You got to give him a chance to be funny. Man, this dude's really funny. Trust me. We're going to bring him back one more time. Come on back. Bring him back out, Kurt. And then Kurt would have to, and I'd always look at Kurt, I'm like, don't go. But he'd go. He fucking went every time, man. He was great. Balls to the wall.
Yeah. That's like saying, let's bring the rape victim back one more time. Everybody.
Yeah, fight back, rape victim. Redo. He would go out there. Yeah, so...
but he could always write, right from the beginning, right?
Always, from the beginning. Yeah. It's amazing jokes. And so I kind of brought him into the fold, and the three of us started coming up to New York. Now, the reality is, in the realm of comedy, like, my comedy and Keith's comedy doesn't really... We could do shows together, for sure. Mm-hmm. We've done a zillion showcases in New York City, but, like, going on the road with Keith, like, with what I did, I don't think Keith... I wasn't the right fit to go on the road with Keith. Robert Kelly took me on the road with him right out of the gate. He still lived in L.A., and he brought me out to, he goes, hey, actually he offered it to Kev. Kev couldn't do it. He goes, I got 3 colleges coming up 3 nights in a row. If you drive, like, I'll bring you to open for me. And Kev turned it over to me, and he's like, sure, I'll bring you. This is one of my favorite stories ever. I come from Philly. I pick up Bobby in New York. We drive somewhere really deep, a couple hours into Connecticut or something. And we do a show there. We come back that night. No, I'm sorry. The next night we drive all the way up to almost the Canadian border. So it's like another 6 hours. I'm driving the whole time. And we stay there the night. We come back. We spend the night at his apartment, because I lived in Philly. I sat up in a chair and fell asleep. I was snoring. This is a guy I don't know very well. I wake up because I'm snoring so loud, apparently. He threw a fun size... like pack of M&Ms at my ear. It boxed my ear, and I woke up ready to fight. And he's like a guy who I respect because of where he, you know what I mean. And he's like, "Shut the fuck up, dude." And I'm like, "You just poked my ear." And he like apologized. It was fine, obviously. After a while, then we drove all the way down, like way down, like the bottom of Maryland or Virginia Beach or something, and then we drive back. right past my house in South Jersey was the time. I take him back to New York, turn around, and go back down to South Jersey. It was like over the course of 3 days, we did like an insane amount of driving.
Yeah.
But I was happy to do it. I got the exposure with Bobby. It was colleges, but Bobby's a great comic, and he was getting to like me, maybe bring me on some more stuff. I get back to the Comedy Cellar a couple nights later. This is well before I ever worked there. But I'd hang out there every night because Keith brought us into that fold where it's every night. It's Colin, it's Patrice, it's Bill Burr, it's DePaulo. Everyone's there, hang out. Norton, Florentine. They're all hanging out, and Keith goes, "Hey, how'd the weekend go with Bobby?" I go, "Good." He goes, "What did he pay you?" So I just go, $300. And he goes, that's good. $300 a show. That's pretty cool. I go, and I'm just correcting him. I'm not upset. I go, no. He gave me $100 a show. It was $300 for the trip. He goes, $300 for the trip? Patrice! He starts getting everybody. And they call Bobby on speakerphone. And this is... We're going back to StarTax, like, those phones. They got him on speakerphone, and they held a trial. The rape trial of me, the accused, Bobby Kelly. And what's great about the whole thing is I just want to work with Bobby Kelly again. Right. The money, I didn't think I was going to get a lot of money. I didn't know what big money in any way was or good money. I just getting whatever. And so it's me yelling in the background, them shutting me up and cursing me out and calling me names. Because I'm in the background going, "Bobby, it's not me. I don't care. I'm totally fine with it. I don't care." And Bobby's laughing. He's playing along with the whole thing. And he goes along with it. They found him guilty. Keith was Bobby's lawyer. Patrice was mine. Patrice won. The tables, the Comedy Cellar are chalkboards, and you can draw on them. And then they drew the newspaper with Bobby in jail and me crying. And I knew it wasn't over because the next morning, I don't even know if I had a cell phone yet. I had a house phone. I get a call on my house phone, and that voice right out of the gate, even though he played along and laughed, and I'm yelling, "It's not my thing, Bobby." I answer the phone, and Bobby just goes, I go, "Hello?" I hear, "You don't tell people what you make, dude." And this is like a skinny, thin, in good shape Bobby. And I remember like a month later, he did Mohegan Sun. I think Mohegan Sun had just opened, and I did Mohegan Sun with him. And he goes, "I'll give you $300 for the one gig. Let's go up to Mohegan Sun." So I do it. And he walks me to an ATM after the gig. He goes, "What'd I tell you I was giving you?" I was like, $300, you said. He goes, "Here's $400. Go tell people that, you fat asshole."
That's so great. So, for a young guy like that, you're in through the looking glass now, right? You're in a completely different world.
It is, and the beauty of my career, for whatever it was even if I wasn't like in the dances, I always felt like in the game. I felt like I was always right in the perimeter, and that was Keith Robinson, because I was able to build organic friendships with people who might have not taken an interest in me otherwise.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I think Patrice kind of had the same outlook as me. I was an open mic comic, essentially, trying to get in to some of these clubs, and Patrice just liked me as a dude. Me and Kev, because we were Keith's guys. So I would be able to hang out with him on a level that a lot of people wouldn't,
Sure.
If I came into New York even early one day, I can go, "Hey, Patrice, guys, hang at your house." He lived with Will Sylvan still at the time. And they were, just roommates, and I'd go hang out with Patrice for a couple hours. And that was like invaluable, and then Patrice started taking me on the road a little bit too. And again, I worked well with Patrice on the road. That was a good thing. But Patrice was trying to feed a lot of people with that kind of thing. So he was spreading it out. And then the person with my audience kind of came built into that. And all these guys I can never repay enough. And I mean that. But for as far as like getting me out there and just like day-to-day coaching of comedy and what to do was I worked with Dave Attell one time at Caroline's, and I opened for him, and he was complimentary. He said it was a good job. When I got into the Comedy Cellar right away, which is about 10 years, 11 years ago now, when I got into the cellar, people that were like mad that I got into the cellar started saying around town, they go, and I was very influenced by him without a doubt, and our voices have a similar thing, and they go, "Oh, you're just doing Attell." And I go, I get what you're saying, but I mean, like, I do a different thing than Attell. You know what I mean? I go, I know what you mean, and sure, maybe, but I was like, I'm not trying to step on his toes, so my thing was to attack the problem. At least, I went to Dave Attell one night, and this is maybe our third conversation ever, and I go, hey, Dave, people are just saying that I'm really ripping your shit off, and it's making me uncomfortable. Would you watch me and let me know what you think? And he goes, sure. And I went on.
It's beautiful. First of all, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And he watched my set. I'd always go on like either right before him or right after him. I think I went after him, and he watched my set. And I watched. You could still smoke inside, and I remember like as I'm hitting punchlines, I'm kind of looking in that hallway area at him, and he's like, you know, like nodding his head, half chuckling at best. And I get off and I go, what do you think, man? Is there any problem with that? And I always remember it was September, but I don't remember what. He just goes, "Do you want to open for me at the Stress Factory, September, blah, 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 or whatever." And he never told me if he thought I sounded like him or not. I always thought it was interesting, and I always wondered years later if that was like, maybe if he thought I did, if he kind of took me under his wing like that, maybe I would be forced to not. You know what I mean? Because I have to go in front. We can't do the same person doing a two-man show together. So maybe he did, but he took me all over the country, and he's just like, sang my song louder than anybody, just putting me on. And I mean, it's not super public knowledge at all. I haven't told it on almost anything, but right before I got the Comedy Central hour, he called me up one day and just said, this is ridiculous. Like, you have to have an hour of comedy out there. He goes, I'll give you X amount of dollars, get a production company to match that, and he goes, you will get your special there. He goes, and he's like, talk to my production guys. They'll probably do it. He's like, but you guys, this is ridiculous. Like, he's promoted me more than anything. So it's like that. And that was a guy who's like, yeah, it's just like, he said things on stage, he's such a curmudgeon in that delivery. Right. And, he'll say, he goes, you guys like Jay? He goes, I hope so. I have to raise him like a baby. Or he made fun of my daughter once, and he goes, no, you can laugh. It's okay. I feed her.
But I think that's like the amazing thing is that you ended up becoming friends and also being mentored by the funniest fucking people I've ever seen.
Funniest to me, for sure.
But I mean, like, the people that we're talking about are like scary funny. Like, it's difficult to sit next to David Tell and riff for a little while and not go, oh shit, maybe I'm not funny even slightly. You know? That's what a normal person who wouldn't be insane would say to themselves.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
Well, this is stupid. Someone was already doing all this, you know? But did that kind of stuff ever, like, do you ever look when you're younger at some of those guys and go, I'll never get to that point, you know?
I thought that about their level of talent, but that's always, I thought that when I said I first went to those open mics in the Laugh House in Philadelphia, the guy that was humping the stool the hardest and, doing whatever, breaking down a hip-hop song or something and destroying the room, I was like, wow, like that ability to do that, even if whether you're pandering or what, to get that reaction from people always impressed me. There was, people who stopped doing comedy 3 months after that are just like, if they knew how to do well in that moment, I was like, that's pretty impressive. So what it was by getting to that level of guys was guys who also made that look very easy. Yeah. Looked effortless. That's where it started to look more fun. And these guys weren't in like the day-to-day, like, why do you want to know where I'm working at? Or you want to know if you can work, the who books that joke? And who books that? Who books that? And just these guys being friends and just being dickheads and being funny. And then going from, I'm very much aspired to have that feeling of like, the transition from stage and off stage is nothing. Right. To be like, you could be having a conversation and they go, Jay, they're calling your name. And then go, oh yeah, wait, I'll finish that when I come back. And then not that it's like I'm on in 5. Let me go walk outside around, listen to a song that gets me pumped up, or just being it. And I thought those guys showed me how to do that.
Well, seriously, you could sit and talk to almost any of those people, and they throw away things in a conversation that other comics would build an entire act around.
Absolutely.
And it's just falling off of them. It's crazy.
And it's funny to see a guy like David Tell who has just no interest in a podcast, where I'm like, it would be the best one ever.
Sure.
Patrice never really got around the time where that was a thing.
But well, he had done a little bit, yeah. And all that stuff is just gold. But you know what I really love about Attell is like no one knows him really. Like he almost has like this Batman thing where he shows up, fucking does something unbelievable, and then he's gone. And then people are like, does he have a family? Does he live somewhere else? What happens with him? No one knows, really.
You know, it's funny, and being a cigarette smoker with him all those years too,
Right.
and just being outside, and you're also like an anxious person, and all the same things we share on several different levels. Just being awake with him all night. We've done a lot of overnight drives that were
Right.
7 hours. I've been in cars with him for 9-hour drives to and from places, and just picking his brain. Like, I do get to know him, and I remember saying to Christine before, like, or even like even years before that with my ex-wife, I remember driving home sometimes back to Long Island at night, and just like a 3 a.m. phone call from David Tell, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing? I'm in Austin. I'm bored. I'm smoking." And I'd hang up the phone and I go, "Am I possibly David Tell's best friend in the world?" I'll call him my best friend right now. If he's my best friend, I go, I might be his best friend in the world. But a thing like that, man, I mean, when he did Tell's Comedy Underground, which I had a chance to go, and you were such a big promoter of that, I knew the talent producer on that. And it was funny, I found out actually at this club here at the stand. I went outside when someone I got a third hand. They go, "You hear David Tell got a showcase series he's hosting on Comedy Central." I went, "Oh, neat. Like, I'm going to be on TV." And they were like, "What do you mean?" I go, "I just know." It's not a cocky thing. I just know I know him.
Right.
I know I know who he takes care of. And I made a guess. And the only one I missed was Russ Maneve, which I would have thought for 5 more seconds I would have got. But I asked the producer, I go, "I guess your question." I go, "When this deal was made, right in the deal out of the gates, me, Joe DeRosa, Kurt Metzger, Mike Vecchione, Louis Katz," and he goes, "Yes," and Russ Maneve. And that was part of the deal. I knew it. Right. I just know it tells. So it's like, you can't, someone handing you a credit like that is like something that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And then he also flew in Jimmy Schubert, who, Tommy Rhodes. I mean, if you sit down and watch those shows from the underground, you're like, this is exactly what anyone's fantasy about what comedy is.
Showcase on TV, especially.
Yeah, the room is perfect. The comics, everybody just comes up and slays.
Absolutely.
And Attell is just weaving himself in and out. It was just brilliant, Well, that was the kind of group that came for you, but you're tight with a lot of people that are kind of your own class. And
well, my own class now, and what's great about that is where some of the successes kind of like, I missed a lot of them in certain years, kind of like the after 10-year mark.
Right.
Happened. The people that got them really looked out for me too. So, I mean, I've done Amy's. I mean, Amy gave me, like, would call me to ask me advice or questions. We're talking when she was doing open mic, and she's put me on her show several times. What she did for me on the Oddball tour with some of the behind the scenes stuff there was amazing. She was great. Just like the people in the good graces of like Comedy Central, like the Mark Normans of the world, would like say my name. They'd list me as someone they looked up to or thought was really good. And so my name kept coming around again. And then really, Ari Shaffir, fought for me. He actually admitted this, and I found this out the other day. I didn't know. But I knew that when he had his show, which is on the internet still, he wanted me to come out and do it. His This Is Not Happening,
right.
Storytelling show. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to do it. I'm ready. I got a story ready to go, whatever. He fought Comedy Central. They did not want to do it. They didn't want me to come out. They wanted, and by the way, they just wanted to keep it all L.A. It was supposed to be just L.A. guys, the web show. They weren't pumping a lot of money into it, but Ari goes, "I got him to fly you out, and you're going to stay with me at my place, at my apartment, and then we're going to get you on the show." He told me the other day, he goes, "Oh, no, I flew you out." He goes,
all right.
Because I didn't want you to feel bad, which I thought was amazing, but he would put me up at his place, and I went out and I did a good job for him, and they brought me back the second season, and he didn't have to fight for me, but him putting me back in with Comedy Central like that and fighting for me, giving me that opportunity is something I couldn't repay.
I went back and watched that, and I still feel like Comedy Central made a mistake. What are they doing? But does that kind of stuff, when you're in it that long, and knowing that the gatekeepers are saying no, how crushing is that? Yeah.
Oh,
when everybody we're talking about who knows comedy better than I do goes on stage, those people are behind you. But the people that hold the gates and who make the decisions, whether you get national exposure, not in your corner at that time.
Sure. And look, a lot of it, I started to get like just resentful towards myself, even because you know what I did was because I grew up the way I grew up. Like my dad wasn't around a lot when I was young, so when I and that's not a sad story. I had a stepfather and everything was great, but the way I felt about my dad at the time, I didn't want when I had a daughter at 23. I didn't want her to be removed from that, so I couldn't do. I was a little locked out of doing the. Hey, go to LA for a couple weeks in February. It's pilot season. Maybe you jump on. You just kind of get your name in the mix. I never went to LA. I'd go once every couple of years if I got some little thing to do that was worth going out there. But I couldn't take a week and go not make money. Or you know, I'd have to go do a ski trip show for the black comedy circuit to make $700 because I had, and that was like amazing money to me at the time, and I had to do that. So. I got stifled a little bit in that. A lot of people didn't know who I was and everything. And then my daughter, I think there is a correlation, and I don't regret that at all because she does have a very good. She knows me,
Right.
She knows I'm part of her life. And what's funny about it is now she's 13, so she doesn't give a shit quite as much. I mean, she does more than she lets on to. But it is funny, if I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks, I'm like, I love you so much. I'm going to be gone for 3. I miss you. I hate that I don't get to see you. I overdo it. Even put on slightly because I do miss her, but I'm just trying to let her know it's like, I love you and I wish I didn't have to not see you for 3 weeks. She's always like, huh? Can I? She's like, can you give me money? Because my friends are having a sleepover and blah, blah, blah. She doesn't. So it's funny because I've hopefully done the job right enough with what I was trying to do that it's not weighing on her the way it's weighing on me. If I was going to be, hey, I'm going to be gone for 3 months. I got to film a TV show. Where at? I'd go LA. She goes, can I come see LA? Like it has nothing to do with the being apart from me, which is good. I've done that. So when I felt that out of her, I knew it was okay at time. And just some advice. And my friend Michelle, who was supposed to be here and I couldn't be here, become a very good friend of mine. It was nice to hear coming from a woman. She's the one who produced Ha, the musical that me and Lewis did, the off-Broadway musical about stand-up comedy. But she said to me, I remember so funny. She goes, listen.
I'm sorry. I was just thinking about you two singing and dancing on stage.
And cane dancing.
Yeah.
She's funny. She's a really unabashed personality. She definitely goes big. And she was, when I first did Hob Musical, it was before a lot of these things happened.
Yeah.
And she was like, you're going to be great. You're going to do something, but you got to come out to LA more. You could always stay at my place, but she's made her home available to me when I go out there, which is a big, big deal. To have a place, like a home base, feels like an actual house. And she goes, but I go, yeah, I'm just worried about being gone so much because of my daughter. She's only at the time maybe 11. She's 11 years old. And she goes, what? I go, yeah, I want to be there for there's soccer games and things like that. She goes, yeah, when you can go, you go. But if you have to be gone to do for work stuff, I go, but it means a lot. I think it means a lot that I'm there at these games. And she goes, yeah, it is. When you can go, you go. She goes, I remember my dad as a blur in a suit when I was younger. She goes, but when he was there, but he was a blur in a suit most of the time because that's how we got to go to good schools and got to do, and then I know there's a balance you got to find between those two things, but I hope that I did in the sacrifice maybe of maybe more financial success in comedy earlier.
Yeah, I think if you take the time, and it's probably right now, not right now, because she's what, 13?
Yeah.
But in a couple of years when you sit her down and you let her know how much she hurt your career, that... it'll all start to sink in.
It's been a real burden on my career.
Yes. I mean, who knows?
Dad, why can't I get Beats headphones?
Yeah.
And I'm like, because of you.
Yeah. Right. And you could be like, or I could be opening a movie with The Rock this weekend. And it could have fucking happened.
No one's ever thought I've looked at a picture of Kev on any movie poster and been like, that could have been me. I could have been Soul Plane.
Yeah. And the sad thing is you have so many different posters to look at now.
Yeah.
Fucking Kev just put out 2 movies while we were sitting. But I do want to talk about your special, and it's Saturday night. And here's the deal on that too, is this is
Friday night technically.
Oh, Friday night, okay, but it's late Friday night?
It's Friday. It's Saturday. It's Friday midnight into Saturday. Yeah.
Friday at midnight.
Yep.
Which is Saturday. Okay. But you know what? Let's do it Black Circuit style. So it's Friday night.
I was saying earlier. That's not
work.
Black Circuit. After work jamboree.
But did it come out the way that you wanted to? Because I know any of your friends know what a dream this was for you. How a lot of times it wasn't a positive feeling, that it was not within your grasp. Did you get the show you wanted to get
that night? I feel like I did. Yeah, when I did it that night, I haven't watched it through since we did it. But that night when I was done, I felt like, yeah, I go one of those two shows straight through. Either one of them would work. I felt, yeah, that was like I said, for as gruff as I am, especially on stage, and obnoxious, I guess it could be at times.
Yes,
it is fun. I'm oddly sensitive and sentimental, and just to see the line, you know, to the best of my knowledge, I hope I'm not speaking out of school on this, but I think the audience coordinator, who does for all these specials to make sure there's an audience there no matter what. There's a list she has. She reaches out. People come and fill the audience. I believe on 2 shows at Webster Hall, I think they never go to that list. I think it was all 100% fans. People flew in for it and all kinds of, which I thought was like, the fact that anyone would fly anywhere.
Yeah.
The fact that someone would fly in, and you know, and how much, you know, I was going to get to this more before we said goodbye at some point, but it's like what your show, when it was Ron and Fez show to Bennington, what you guys did for my career was insane. That's won't take it. That was the catalyst. Like, forget industry, stand-up comedy industry at all. When I would go on the road, your fans showed up for me, and like some of the friendships I have, even with your, I mean, like Shreka Love and the people I hear on your thing, and Liz Sets Fire. These people come to my. I'm thinking I'm gonna see Liz this weekend in Miami. They come to my stuff always, and they're just so sweet. And like that support is something else.
Well, that was the amazing thing that night. Like you said, people flew in for your special, but so many of your friends were there. Your family was there. The set is amazing. The band that was rocking before. Yeah. I mean, everything was terrific. And I never was at anything that everybody wanted you to have the show that you wanted to have. I mean, it was incredibly touching. It was a really, really touching night. And the friends that you have, and these are, by the way, hilarious people. I mean, you bust balls with all of your friends, but these are just fall down funny people.
Yeah.
And for them to show up and be like slightly nervous before, like, is this going to happen? And then when it's happening, they're looking around and they're loving it. And I would see you land a joke, and I'd look over at your parents, and I saw when your dad found out that his dick is smaller than your stepfather's. You know, I was there for that magical moment.
My favorite thing about that was, I know Christine was there going like, oh, watch. There's his dad. There's his stepdad.
Yeah, she pointed it out.
She couldn't wait.
She was actually going, wait till he gets to the dick stuff. This is going to kill you. And I thought, but seriously, that thing of everybody coming together and knowing that this was a dream for you. I mean, you don't get to see people make their dreams come true, you know?
And that's what that night was. Like I said, when it was over, I think I tearily even said to like Christina, there it is. Like, that's my Delirious, or my Bill Cosby himself. Sorry, bad timing.
Yeah.
But, you know.
No,
but
it still works. Still works for the
But when I was young.
Philly.
Yeah, sure. Temple, you? But, you know, I mean, just like that, those legendary performances.
Sure.
Not that it's just like that. It's the ones you just know them by name. It's like, I got my one out there. If that's the, you know,
that'll be it.
Wherever it goes from there.
Yeah.
Who knows? My point just being like, it's there. Like, I have a piece of work that's like in the world.
Well, I even talked to you before then, and you were concerned about getting to this point, that you had looked at this spot on the horizon for so long that you were like, now what will happen to me?
Yeah, I do wonder that.
You were saying to me, I think I'm going to die after this happens. Because
I'm still not completely convinced I'm not going to die.
Well, you will, but not for a while. I mean, you won't die the way you did on the Black Circuit. But It'll be easier. It'll be easier when you die. But that thing of very few people know that I've set my goal on something. It was kind of that Super Bowl moment, and I never been with a bunch of people who cared about somebody. Like nobody was thinking about themselves. It was an amazing experience, you know.
Well, yeah, it was amazing, and I think I'm such a mother hen in a weird way with my friends, and I kind of with a lot of them, I think I'm kind of the center of the spider web. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of people necessarily who don't hang out with each other.
There's no way Gomez and Soder are going to be together unless you're there.
Well, not happily. You need a conduit there, someone to go between. But no, you know what I mean? Like it's a lot of people that, and again, everyone's sort of friends, but you know what I mean? Like I'm kind of the center of, everyone is of their own web,
sure.
But it's an interesting one that I have for sure, that I feel very lucky to have.
But it's generations of hilarious people. It's generations of just some of the funniest minds. But for those people to show up that night and not be ball busting, you know what I mean?
They were excited,
be looking at this and, you know, standing outside in between shows, everyone's like, the first show fucking crushed, so now he's free to do the second show. And do you know if they use more second or first?
Second.
Yeah, I thought that was, everyone felt like that was going to happen because you could have put out the first show, right? You could have just said, that's it. But when that weight came off your shoulders, you were really free.
It was, yeah. I remember during the taping of the second show, I remember sitting up weirdly at one point because I was going, "Oh, you're on fucking TV, idiot!" I was like so like relaxed into it,
right.
Where I was almost out of reaction, kind of like, "So, what do you guys want to talk about?" I was like, "Oh shit, this is." I know there's a prompter telling me what I have to talk about.
Right. So you kind of knew while it was happening. You were like, "Yeah, this is the one that I want to happen that way."
Yeah, I was feeling really good about it. I wanted to make it big, and God bless Comedy Central. They let me like kind of roll with it and do whatever. Getting to the set that day, which you'll see when the special comes out, I walked out and they were, and the director Jeff Tomsick who's amazing. He's going like, "All right, when you come out," he goes, "you'll be standing there when the light comes on. You're gonna come down and just shake hands with everybody on all three sides. Then you kind of take your seat, drink it all in." I go, "Cool." He goes, "Just be careful with the corners there because the cryojets." And I go, "The cryojets?" He goes, "Yeah, we got cryojets." And they blow those that air up, and it just looks like a wrestling entrance. It's amazing. It's so over the top, but I love that.
Yeah.
Because it's so over the top, and then I go sit on a stool for an hour. I mean, it looks like I'm coming out to human cannonball into the balcony.
Well, it looked amazing, and like I said, I mean, the night was just one of those nights that happened, and I mean, the fact that you worked this long to get there, does it feel sweeter, or do you wish this was your 7th?
No, I'm happy. I'm happy the way. You know what? As long as it happened in any way, like I'm okay with the timeline that it happened. Everything you get. I'll say specifically in comedy, you always feel like you were a couple years past it. I remember, funny thing, right. Russ Maneve said this to me when I went on the Dave Attell Insomniac tour. I did the East Coast with him, and we did Westbury Music Fair was the last night of the tour. And Russ Maneve, we're on this tour bus. It's wrapped in Dave Attell's face, cool picture of him, and it says inside. People running out of their houses when we drive through neighborhoods. I mean, it was the height of that show. When we pull up, the college kids are losing their mind. People love it. And then Russ Maneve goes, he goes, "How's it been?" I go, "I'm having a ball. I think this is so cool. We're on a tour bus. This is nuts." I go, "Attell seems like he's annoyed by the whole thing."
Yeah.
I go, "He just kind of smokes cigarettes," and he's like, when people come up there banging on the bus, like, "Dave Attell." He's like, "Should I go out there?" And the tour manager will be like, no, you're going to create a whole thing. He's like, he just seems like so like dealing with other things in his mind, on the fact that we're traveling in a bus that's his picture on his tour at these sold out theaters. You know what I mean? And I said to Russ Maneve, I was like, yeah, he just seems so unaffected and like almost like annoyed by this whole thing. And he goes, yeah, well, when anything you get ever, don't you always feel like could have done this 3 years ago, could have used this 3 years ago? And he's kind of right. You know what I mean? But it's not that But you have to look at it as the more time you don't get things. I have to tell a lot of friends this with that Montreal Just for Laughs festival is still like such an early on like thing you want to get in comedy. Like, you just want to have that on your resume. I did this festival. It's like the comedy festival. And when they don't get it, you go, well, you auditioned for it, you didn't get it, so you're going to audition next year, and you're going to be another year strong. It doesn't matter. I got it at 5 years. It was worthless. The first time I did it Just for Laughs, the New Faces, you go up there, you get a deal, and they're giving everyone deals. Then a couple people got those deals, and it went to shit. They started giving out these deals so regularly, nothing was coming of them. So they stopped doing that, and that's when I went to Montreal. It didn't matter. I did it 5 years, and I think Kurt did it at 8, 9 years in the comedy Metzger. But I'll tell you what, I don't know what Montreal did for Metzger so much either, but I know when I watched Kurt do his New Faces, I was like, man, was he even 4 or 5 more years ready for this. Like, he stood out. Yeah. Where I did okay on it. But that year that Metzger did New Faces is when Robbie Prawl, who at the time was booking, it was his first year booking Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal. And he only took 2 gambles that year, weirdly enough. And it was for me and Patrice to be on the Nasty Show. Patrice had not done the festival, at least in that capacity yet. Something. It was like, that was his big thing to get Patrice at the festival. And me, both in that Nasty Show, and like we both did a good job for him. Patrice obviously like destroyed. That's all over YouTube. Yeah. That set, and he was amazing, and he's always just taking a liking. So now that festival brings me, you know what I mean. So it didn't matter that I did it at the 5 years in. It's always when it happens. He saw me 5 years later do the Nasty Show, which is a show that I'm built for essentially, and now it works out that festival's always been good to me ever since. He's not even there anymore, and they still like. They bring me back. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's always getting that thing. So I don't know. Maybe 5 years ago, my special would have had a bunch of jokes that would have been like, I mean, my half hour does. My half hour's got plenty of jokes. I mean, my half hour special, I think it's funny. I like the work, but I watch and I go, at the end of the day, there's like a Maury Povich joke in there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, Patrice actually, the first day I ever did this show in Mass, said that they give you everything too soon and too late. Yeah. Everything that's out there. And I know we always end up, anytime you and I get together, it's Patrice's name comes up. And he was a guy that was incredibly kind to you, incredibly cool to you.
Yeah, I liked that I'm in the Thoughts with Him Ever. I remember walking up to Sirius one time, and Tracy Morgan was coming out of, and it was after Patrice had passed away, Tracy Morgan was coming out of Howard Stern's wing over there. And I go, hey, Tracy. And he goes, Jay Boogie. He goes, oh, man, now you got me thinking about Patrice. He goes, that was your man.
Yeah. And I was thinking about him the night of your special as well. I thought he would have got a big kick out of it.
There's going to be a picture of him and a dedication at the end of my special when it rounds up. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Is it just Patrice or any radio guy who put you out there in front of his audience? Big Jay Oakerson, everybody. We love him.
I love you, Ronnie.
Proud of you, man.
Thank you, man.